Hey, what is up guys? So I started Optimum Tech a little under 2 years ago, and ever since then my approach to storing my projects and video files has been extremely poor. But today we take a big step forward in terms of workflow efficiency. So far I've been storing my video projects on these painfully slow external 3.5-inch drives. I use these for almost every video that I work on here on the channel because there's always that one clip that I need to go back and find for every single project. And of course for the video projects that need to be transferred from my main editing machine to somewhere else eventually. Now there are some obvious problems with this approach, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but I'm so excited to finally take a look at a proper storage solution for all of my video projects. Today we'll be taking a look at 40 terabytes worth of Iron Wolf drives from Seagate and storing those in the QNAP TS431X2 NAS. So a huge thanks to both Seagate and QNAP for making this upgrade possible. So first, a quick look at the hardware, and then we'll talk about my workflow for handling video files and projects and how that has been improved significantly with this new NAS. And 40 terabytes might not sound like a lot for video production, but luckily my video files are very lightweight since my camera shoots at just 100 megabits per second at 4K, so I'm expecting this to last me quite a while. Based off of my current video project file size of 40 gigabytes and my current upload frequency, which is roughly 10 videos per month, that means that I'll be able to store up to 1,000 video projects over these 40 terabytes of drives. And at my current upload frequency, that means it should last me about 100 months or a little over 8 years. Of course though, I probably will upgrade my camera in the near future, and I will probably upload more frequently as time goes on and my workflow becomes a little bit more efficient. However, it's just a great feeling, and if you are a video creator or maybe do some media work on the side with large files, you know the feeling of having this much overhead in terms of storage capacity. Of course, that's not factoring in a RAID array. In certain configurations, you do lose quite a lot of space, usually cut in half, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. The Iron Wolf drives have some great reviews and are regarded as some of the best in the business, with up to 14 terabyte capacity being available in a nice 8-disc array. You've also got 3 years warranty and a massive 1 million hours on average between drive failures. I've got 4 of the 10 terabyte drives, as I said before, which retail for about 300 US per drive, and this is priced pretty competitively against the 10 terabyte 7200 RPM WD Red drives, at least on Amazon US. Alright, next up, let's take a look at the NAS that I'll be using to house the 40 terabytes of storage, and that's the QNAP TS431X2. It's a tidy little enclosure with mostly a matte black exterior, so it matches my current editing machine quite well. And one of the biggest standout features here is the 10 gigabit Ethernet port on the rear. It is an SFP Plus port though, and a cable is not included, so that'll need to be purchased separately if you'd like to make use of that 10 gigabit networking. Otherwise, there's 2 single gigabit LAN ports on the rear for connecting to your router or PC, and you can also connect external USB drives to the TS431 via the 3 USB 3.0 ports, 2 at the rear and 1 at the front. This model also has a quad-core ARM Cortex A15 CPU clocked at 1.7 GHz and 2 GB of memory. Installing the drives is pretty simple, with the drive bays which slide in and out nice and smoothly. It's not completely toolless like some other NAS enclosures that I've seen, but a few screws aren't going to hurt anyone. Installation went smoothly too, and initializing all of the drives only took roughly 40 minutes. Also, the OS on the NAS is pretty tidy and easy to use, but it also is pretty extensive and intimidating for me personally, depending on how deep you want to go. I really appreciate the resource monitor, which shows things like CPU and memory usage. Luckily, mine was not maxing out even with a RAID array in place. I barely scratched the surface of what this OS offers, and to be honest, this is complete overkill for my use case. You've got the option to set the drive array up in RAID 0 for maximum speed, or for data redundancy, you could select 1, 5, 6, or 10, depending on your needs. Now, the biggest gains that I personally wanted to see moving to this new setup for storage were both the improved capacity, but even more so the improvement in speed, as that way I could truly speed up my workflow by a decent amount. So I wanted to initialize the drives in RAID 0 first to evaluate the speeds there, and keep in mind that RAID 0 should ideally be used for fast storage access and not backups. There I'd advise exploring RAID 1, 6, or 10. RAID 0 was able to fully saturate the gigabit connection both when downloading and uploading footage minus some overhead, and ideally if you are using this setup as fast storage access in RAID 0, not a backup, that 10 gigabit port is definitely recommended. the 1 gigabit per second connection is fast enough for my workflow, and since I am being bottlenecked by it, I decided to reinitialize my drives to RAID 10, as this way I'm still getting twice the speed from a single drive, but also twice the redundancy. So this way, even if a single drive fails, it still can be recovered, although my storage will be cut in half. Unfortunately, connecting to the NAS via the router was a no-go for me personally, seeing as I connect to my router wirelessly, and transfer speeds there were a big issue. Even with the RAID 0 array and a gigabit connection, I was only seeing about 30 megabytes per second when uploading a single video to the NAS, and about 40 megabytes per second when downloading from it via a wireless connection from my PC. That's probably no fault of the NAS though, but more so via the wireless connection. And I guess the biggest negative for me personally is the noise coming from the NAS. It's not just the usual mechanical drive spinning noise, but it's also a lot of intermittent rumbling and knocking. That's a shame because I've spent a lot of time optimizing my editing system for noise levels, populating the near silent Noctua fans on my radiator for example, but the constant noise from the NAS is kind of annoying. Since I'm unable to utilize that fast storage over a wireless connection and having it on my desk is intolerable due to constant noise, I'll probably look elsewhere for a external enclosure for these drives. Overall though, I'm pretty pleased with the hardware. It is my first time playing around with a NAS as well as storage in RAID, so it's definitely a new and exciting step. My current setup just can't accommodate a NAS though, especially one this loud, so I guess you could say there will be a part 2 very soon. My dream storage setup would be 40 terabytes or so in RAID 0, utilizing those Iron Wolf drives, so that I could access my previous video projects extremely quickly, as well as push my completed projects off of my editing system, and then have additional storage solely for backups. So if you guys have any recommendations for a separate enclosure for these 40 terabytes worth of Iron Wolf drives, let me know down below. I'd personally like to move to something like a USB 3.1 Gen 2 connection, or possibly a Thunderbolt 2 or Thunderbolt 3, seeing as my next motherboard upgrade will have that. As always guys, a huge thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.